everyone, welcome to the live portion of the Pack Horse Seminar. This is my good friend Amanda Caldwell.
Hi guys.
She's coming to us from Bozeman, Montana. I'm your token Canadian foreigner here, and we're going to go through the mechanics of packing a horse. Whether you've been in the mountains once or twice, seasoned professional, or you're looking at starting out, we're just going to take you from basically the hoof up on getting your horse saddled and how to throw a classic diamond. So the gear that we have here with us is 2 sets of great Pokiak style boxes. We also have kind of a top pack that you'd see in the mountains. It's usually going to be lighter packed, so your bedroll, clothes, lightweight food, dry food. So we also have our diamond rope, lash cinch, whatever you're going to call it. Here we also have our sawbuck style saddle, complete with all of our rigging. It's a good thing on husbandry to make sure that you have all the appropriate tack in good working condition before you head to the mountains. Pro tip. And make sure porcupines don't get it. We have a really good, you'll notice on the pack pad, it's about 1 inch thick. It's also something that comes down a little bit longer, more than like a traditional riding saddle. And that's just to help distribute the weight and the sawbucks with the pannier. And then of course we have our top mani here, which we're actually gonna wrap and put over the top of our configuration before we throw our diamond. So without further ado, we're gonna get started. The first thing you also want to think about when you're getting ready to go to the mountains, balance is key. You think about riding your horse, you want to keep both feet on side of the saddle. If you're riding with a scabbard, you're going to have an axe on the other side. It's all about balance. So before you even get ready to throw your saddle on your horse, make sure your boxes are evenly weighted. A lot of guys can do this the old-fashioned way. We kind of like to have a joke around camp who can get it the closest by just the old eyeball. There are mechanical baggage claim type things that you can actually get that'll get it within like 0.2 of a pound or something like that.
Very, very close.
Very close.
Yeah. How close would you say that they have to be if somebody was weighing?
Oh, I'd say the closer the better. Within half a pound to a pound, usually you're not going to have a big load shift. If you get anything more than a couple pounds and your saddle starts slipping, that sucker's going to roll. So we have level boxes. Let's get going. Amanda's going to take the one box to her side, as well as her saddle pad. More. So the first thing I like to do, and I like to talk about with like my friends and wranglers, when you're grooming down your horse, you want to make sure that your horse is sound before you ever throw a saddle on. Jokingly, I have found we got a little bit of scald here, so technically I wouldn't use this horse, because if you run your hands down, kind of their dorsal line, if a horse ever quivers or flinches out of reaction, you're going to find that that horse probably has something underlying issues. So what I like to do when I have my curry comb is I'll really put a little bit of elbow grease into massaging my horse, making sure that their muscles are feeling good. I'll run my hand down by the cinch, make sure that there's no, open wounds or sores from yesterday if you had another trail day. And then I'll just make sure that the horse is in good condition. I'll brush down their rump onto their tail. A lot of times if you have poor fitting pack rigging and it's starting to bite on the back of the horse's quarters, you'll start to get a little bit of a line and almost like a blister. So that's something that you want to make sure when you're getting your horse ready, they're not flinching out of pain, you're not seeing any sores, and then you're ready to put your pad on. So the first thing when you want to look at your pad, I had an old cowboy show me the action of the horse happens back here. So there's actually going to be a hairline when you come up out of their stifle, and where the hair splits and it goes towards the horse, you want to keep the pad in front of that. And where the hair goes to the back, when you watch a horse move, their hips will actually rock back and forth. So if your pad's on that line, believe it or not, whether if you have a tight diamond or not, that pad can actually work its way out, and there is nothing worse. It's never the horse you're leading, it's never the horse at the back, it's always the horse in the middle of the pack string where you gotta go and untie everyone else, and they're the guy that has their pad sitting out of there and their sawbuck still up on the front. So we mitigate that, we put it properly up on his withers in front of the line here where they're not gonna grab, and then we go to our saddle. Right. So this is a standard sawbuck style here, and we're gonna root it on. So when you're saddling a horse, just as if it's gonna be a riding saddle or a sawbuck or a pannier style, right where the action of the horse comes in underneath her withers, there's a hollow spot right here. And you can kind of run your hand in underneath, and there's going to be like a hole or a pocket. You want the front of that sawbuck right here to be sitting right in that pocket. It's kind of like a good fitting backpack. It's right behind their shoulders. It's not up on their shoulders, pinching them when they're trying to move out. It's just sitting nicely on the flattest part of their back. All right. So when you're saddling a horse too, whether it's a young one or an old one, I like to keep my britching in the middle. The first thing that you're ever gonna do on a saddle horse or on a pack horse is always do up your front cinch first. Something happens, you have a bear come into camp, you literally are trying to get ready to go, you get sidetracked, that horse gooses and steps sideways. If you have this main cinch done up, it's gonna stay hopefully and most likely in the middle of the horse. If you were to do up the breast collar, that horse is literally gonna have the saddle and all of its gear swing to the front, then you're gonna have a wreck, they're gonna pull back. You have the britching first and they decide to scoot out, all of a sudden it's gonna come up under their tail, and the next thing you know, they're gonna hog around like some bronc you see at a rodeo. Same wise with the back cinch. So what I like to do on my pack horses is I'll get this one nice and tight like this, and I will actually run the rigging with my latigo, and I'll show you why in a second, where I have the tail coming out this way here. I'll get to that in 1 minute. A big thing too, guys, is when you're in the country, in the back country, and just around home, it's a really good practice. You saw how we had the latigos tied up. There's nothing worse than having all your latigos hang like this, having a sloppy saddle when you take it off. It's a good practice to keep these tied up and keep all your cinches on the top of your sawbuck. That way you're not tripping when you're walking to your horse. There's nothing worse than having a bunch of horses tied on a rickety old lodge pole, walking towards them, eating it, and then having the horses all goose and either you getting stuck underneath them or a young one having a little bit of a breakaway. And on a pack horse, a lot of guys are like, well, you know, I don't like to run my back cinches that tight. Well, the idea of the back cinch is to help keep the saddle from moving. You want to have it snug. We're not cutting the horses in half, but you want to be able to have that cinch, you know, similar to the tension that you're going to have in your front cinch. Helps if I do it the right way. So the idea, guys, you can see here where I've got these two, when you put the sawbuck on it itself, say you get in the mustard, your horse goes down in a bog, you have a wreck, you need to be able to get this sawbuck off the horse as fast as you can. You get your boxes off. If you can't get them off that quick or something, you have an emergency, you can have someone lift up that box and pull these tabs from the outside, and the next thing you know, that horse will be free of that saddle as quick as you can. I've seen a few horse wrecks in my day, and it's one of those things that if you can mitigate the wreck or you can get the horse to a safer situation faster, it's better for everyone. So I'll cross those over so that there's not a lot of bulk. Next thing we'll do is we'll put the breast collar on. When you're fitting a breast collar on your pack horse, it's very similar to that of your riding horse. You don't want it too tight. If you have this too tight and your horse goes to put its head forward to graze, drink, or navigate a trail, if you can't fit at least a fist in there and this is too tight, it's going to pull your saddle all the way up onto his shoulders. So you want to have it fitting just right, and right into this nice little hollow between their front shoulder and their neck. A lot of different pack riggings will go straight to a D-ring, straight to the sawbuck. This particular model will take you and it'll go down to the front D-ring here, and it's going to go to the sawbuck, so it's going to help hold that saddle as secure as possible. I'll take my ends here just to have everything clean and tidy, and I'll run it just through this D-ring. Keep everything clean. Then next we take the britching. You can see right here where obviously this horse, the saddle's fitting him good up front, but he's a little bit tight. So Amanda and I are going to take this and we're going to adjust this down. Make it a little looser. And you see right here, so there's kind of a sweet spot in when you're fitting the britching. This here is a little bit too high. You can see on the back side of his rump, it's probably going to work its way up because it's higher than the action of the horse. So we're going to go ahead and drop that right down. And we're going to have to adjust probably the top parts as well. Perfect. So unfortunately our horse here, he's got a very sturdy mane and tail system, but in a normal situation we'd be able to then lift up the tail and put it underneath. but there's a sweet spot right here in the curve of the horse's hip where this breeching is going to sit really nice and flush. It's going to be able to hug when it goes downhill, and it's not going to hinder his movement to get up underneath himself if he's got to scoot and kind of rock down onto his hocks for, say, a steeper part of the trail. And then this is the final piece here. This also just helps when you are going downhill. You know, if the saddle does start to get a little bit loose, it's going to help hold your rigging in place. So that's what all of these straps basically are doing. Right here, you want to have this just sitting right nice on top of the horse pin here. And that's just going to allow for movement. If you have it too far up here, you know, it can get bunched up, it can start grabbing at your pad. You want it just sitting kind of right, what would you say, Amanda? That's about 1/3 the way up the top of the horse's rump. So there, we have a nice fitting system. Now we're ready to throw our boxes on. Some horses in the mountains, whether they're old veterans or they just know a lot of tricks, you want to kind of walk them around a little bit. Some of those old boys are really good at holding air. If you want to do that, let them rest for a sec. Maybe you might have to just cinch them up a little bit more. They're tricks to you and it'll be handy. So what we're gonna do is, the first things first, on my off side, I'll always help. They're gonna lift up the box. And on this particular set, we don't have box strings. There you go, Amanda. But we do have this rope here. So Amanda's gonna get her system set up where it's square to the horse on the pannier and on the sawbuck. Perfect. That's basically going to be the foundation for setting up our diamond. You want it to ride just square on top of the sawbuck as it is. The weight distribution is going to be riding here on the bar and then obviously onto the pad. Now, there's a lot of different tricks. Women were frontally enabled in this. When you're putting boxes on a horse, a lot of times, you know, they're not going to stand as nice as old Trigger here. So when I'm getting my boxes set, a lot of times I will use my forearms right here to help hold my box. That's going to allow my offside partner to kind of help me in this situation where we're putting this rope on to allow it to sit properly. So as you can see, our boxes are nice and square. They're lined up. They're perfectly in the center of our sawbuck, our saddle, and we are ready to throw our top pack on. Okay, you want to grab that? Now, when you're throwing a top pack on a horse, the old veterans are used to it. You can kind of chuck it on and be a little bit lazy. On a younger horse, I like to stand at the front of them, and someone will usually hold them for the first few times. And what we'll do is we'll carefully lift it on together, so that way it's not some big action of, here, Trigger, we're just gonna chuck this on you. That's a good way to have a wreck. What you wanna do too, once you get your top pack on, same idea. You wanna have it square onto your decker. You wanna have it square onto your panniers. And you wanna be able to look from the back and make sure that it's riding perfectly. You don't wanna have it, it might look good for me right here, but it might be 3 feet out this side. So when Amanda and I are doing our check, she's gonna be walking around, I'm gonna be walking around to make sure that that top pack is riding perfectly in the center. Now, depending on which province, territory, country, you name it, you're from, there's a million ways to skin a cat when you're putting on the mantee. I'm sure you've, these are like a, you know, they're a Band-Aid in a flash. If you've got a bunch of things on top, you can wrap stuff in it, set it up as a top pack, or like what Amanda and I are gonna do, we're gonna take this and throw it on top and just kind of tuck in the corners. So I think, Amanda, this one's gonna just be, it's probably gonna, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass it over to Amanda over the top. And the big thing here is communication. So Amanda, I'm at the bottom of my box about 2 inches. Do you wanna take it your way? Where are you sitting on your box? Top of your box? Okay, keep taking it. Keep going your way. Keep going. About halfway? All right, I'm about halfway too. Now, the biggest thing, there are some outfits that'll get you to take it and they'll fully express this. And they'll wrap it all the way around and this horse is gonna look like a beautiful Christmas present. That's great for a lot of the open country, but if you're riding through a lot of brush, there's a lot of opportunity for this tarp to get snagged. So what I like to do, like I said, there's a million ways to do it, is first off, I'm gonna take this top piece here and I'm gonna fold it underneath. this piece here. Yep. I'm gonna fold it underneath so I have a nice flap here. The reason we do this is that I can then tuck that in here and I can see my sawbuck. When you're going down the trail and you're checking your loads over your shoulder, you want to be able to see that all your packs are riding straight, and it's super easy if you can see that maybe one of these boxes might have dropped down an inch or two for someone who's a little bit, you know, eccentric like myself. I'm like, oh no, it's gonna fall. But if I can see that my box is in the middle and that my sawbuck is still riding where I left it, chances are that pack's gonna ride just fine. So I'll take that, we'll go to the back, we'll fold it under, and we'll do the exact same thing. Now, depending on the boys you ride with, the crew you're going with, some guys will take this and they'll actually tuck it right up underneath. The idea is you don't want your top pack getting wet. That's why we put a mani load on. You want to make sure that whatever's in here is going to get to camp safe and dry. So this is just one way of doing it. Like I said, you can take it, fully express it, wrap it all the way down and tuck it underneath your boxes. I just like to do it this way. It's nice, neat, and clean. There's not a lot of stuff hanging out, if you will. We'll just take that, do the final touch. All right, how do you feel about that, Amanda? Good. And we'll just keep tucking that back in. It's just a little bit shorter of a mani rope, or a mani, just a little bit shorter of a mani canvas. Holy coffee. Good thing too, if you're on the trail, always drink a lot of coffee. It makes for good education and it makes for great conversation, especially when you get about cup 3. Now this is what we call your lash rope or your diamond rope. I learned this trick actually up in the Northwest Territories. Harold Grindy taught me this. It's a great way to hang your rope because when you put it on a peg, a nail, in the barn, outside at camp, everything is gonna hang nice and straight. Your actual cinch part of this is gonna hang with no bad memory. And what I mean by that is, say you've been riding through the mud, bog, mire, anything, and you take it and you tie it up, say, and you'll put it through and hang it like this. Well, now all of a sudden, if it freezes at night, you're gonna be fighting with this part of your lash rope and trying to get the bad memory out of it. So when you do it like this, it just makes it super neat and clean. So I'll run you guys through. So say at the end of it, you know, you have your rope. All you do to make this configuration is hold this ring here, and I will just literally coil it, and I'll take this last bit of the tail and I'll put the tail up in my hand where I'm holding the lash rope, and I will take this, wrap it around, and that tail that we just created, I will put through the ring. And there you have a nice, neat, clean, free hanging lash rope. It also makes it super easy that when you go to throw a diamond, everything is neat and tidy. One of my biggest pet peeves is you see ropes everywhere and guys chucking stuff, and the last thing you want to have when you're setting up camp or taking down camp or trying to get on the trail, everyone's packing horses at different times. You don't want to have ropes scattered halfway across your yard. So in a situation like this, it makes it neat and clean. I can then put most of my rope right here so I know where it's at, and I can start throwing my diamond. It's my nice, neat, and clean workspace, I guess, is what I'm trying to really hit home with. You don't, on the trail, you're gonna be dealing with horses that are broke, horses that are fresh, horses that, you know, maybe you ride more than you pack, but on a particular day, you gotta like switch them out. So just a nice, neat kind of camp equitique. So this tail, I'm gonna leave a little bit out the end, a couple feet. I'm gonna take it and place it in the middle of my top pack. I am then gonna take my rope, make sure it's staying neat and clean. I'm gonna throw the lash cinch over, and you always wanna make sure that the hook right here is always going to the back of the horse. So I'll pass that over to Amanda. We'll keep that in the middle. And there's a nice little notch here. Thank you, Amanda. So right here, I'm gonna take the rope, and for demonstrational purposes, we're just gonna show on Amanda's side, she also has a notch in her pannier. So what we do next is I wanna make sure that Amanda's D-ring on the lash cinch is closer to the bottom of her box than mine, and you'll see why in a second. So after we take that, and Amanda says she's good on her side, I'm gonna take this piece up here into my left hand, and I'm gonna go up, hand Amanda this part here, And now Amanda's not gonna hold it tight because this is gonna be the action part of my rope. And from the top, I'm gonna take it and twist the rope right here over top the original rope. I like to twist it twice. So this piece here is gonna go over once, like that, over twice. Now we have a nice little triangle. I'm then gonna take this rope here, always good to make sure you're not standing in this, and I'm gonna pull it through. I'm gonna pull it to the back. Now, as you can see, while I have my hand on the rope that I had hooked up to here, where I have twisted it, what I'm gonna do is position myself and I'm gonna have Amanda pull the slack on her side. So I'm gonna say pull, Amanda's gonna pull it, we're gonna watch our top rigging. Now, you see right here, we all of a sudden had our rigging slip forward. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna loosen it off. One sec, Amanda, let go. And I'm gonna ask her just to take her rope back that way here. I'm just gonna go double check. Yeah. So this here, so hold maybe this ring because it's so slippery. Yeah, it's so slippery. We'll try that again. So I'm gonna say pull, Amanda's gonna pull tight the slack that I'm making here. All right. Now, if she's happy with that, her D-ring's sitting good and it's not soring the horse. And what I mean by that is that this ring here isn't poking her horse on the other side. Amanda feels good about that. So what she's gonna do on this side is she's gonna take her rope, pull it up over top onto the action here. It's gonna come down underneath on the sawbuck where they conveniently have some nice little notches. It's gonna come all the way over. And then what I'm gonna do is chase the slack. So right now Amanda's cinching, she's taking her rope and she's scooting it around her box. So that way she's getting it as tight as she can. And what I'm doing is I'm helping pull that slack off from the back of the horse because we're keeping the tension in a nice flowing figure eight. I'm gonna hold the tension on this. Our diamond did slip a little bit, but that's okay. You want that in the center. This is gonna come down here. I'm chasing my tension all the way to here. Amanda feels good about it. She's gonna come to the back of the horse and grab the tail. I'm then gonna make sure there's no cat's eyes or figure eights. Chase a little bit more of the slack. Amanda's gonna pull back on that tail. And we have a perfect diamond up top, ladies and gentlemen. So the way that we finish this, we're gonna pinch off the rope. In the bottom of the diamond, the person who threw on this side pinches it. We take our rope, we do a half hitch, and while holding the pinched off portion, our half hitch, we're gonna run up and secure. And then I like to take a little bit of the rope underneath the tail. I'll put a half hitch over top there, locking that configuration. Thank you, Amanda. Not everyone gets really beautiful assistance like I do, so sorry guys, you don't get this in the mountains. So what I like to do with this, there's a lot of extra rope hanging out here. I don't like to have things hanging down, so I will take this and I will coil it up. And with this coil piece and this handy little loop I made, I will run it through and I will have that rope hang nice, neat, and tidy, and I will tuck it in underneath the diamond rope itself. That way, when I'm looking at this horse, where it doesn't matter where he is in the string, I can see that his rope is here. He's got all of his rigging. Before I walk away, I would tuck this in. I can see his saddle, and I know that this horse has a good riding load. He's got a nice tight diamond. His cinch is sitting perfectly. It's right between this double cinch. It's not riding in front, it's not riding behind. It's perfectly centered. So to me, this is probably one of the perfect diamonds. When it comes to the top part here, ours scooted over a little bit, and that was on me. We can run through that on why. But it's basically because when I did my top piece, it needed to be pushed over here a little bit more. But the main idea of having these front pieces on the rope is to help hold tension from the top pack onto your pannier, and then that way, it's rock solid.